Okay, let's now when we look at this text, when you look at a text the first time, what do you look for? You look for what's theme. Theme contributes to what? The method of development of the text. What we put at theme is they are signals. They are signals about the structure, so that when you see our cooperation as partners should be based, our cooperation as partners should be based, and you see that repeated 4 times, well, don't you see something that is really quite paratactic? I mean, that stands out so much. And so what is the 6, 7, 8, 9? Let's take the easy part here. All right. 6, 7, 8, 9. What's it doing? It is elaborating on what he says in 5. Well, that's so obvious. What do you see about the first 2 paragraphs? I've highlighted it in green. Me, I, first person. Well, that's already a cohesive indicator. And when we come down to paragraph 10, let us, that repetition. So obviously, paragraph 10 is marked by this let us. And this first part, 1 and 2, is sort of a preparation. What do you notice about 3? How does it begin? Over the past 32 years since the establishment of diplomatic ties, it is giving you the circumstance, the time, right? And what follows as we enter the 2nd decade of the 21st century? What's he telling you? This is in sequence. You see, without even really looking at the text as a whole, I already have some pretty good idea of what its structure is. Just on the basis of what is occurring as theme, or something that is repeated, like first person in 1 and 2, and finally, ladies and gentlemen, let us. This is cohesiveness. This is thematic progression. Choices of theme. All of these are aspects of what gives us the clues, what we identify as the coherent structuring of the text. All right, let's listen to it. And you might say, how did I break it up into paragraphs? Well, to some extent, there's a way to translate.
总统先生、奥巴马夫人、女士们、先生们、朋友们，很高兴应奥巴马总统的邀请，在一元扶持的时期来到华盛顿，对美国进行国事访问。此时此刻，我谨代表13亿中国人民，向美国人民致以诚挚的问候和良好的祝愿。President, Mrs. Obama, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it gives me great pleasure to come to Washington and pay a state visit to the United States at the beginning of the new year at the invitation of President Obama. At this point in time, let me extend, on behalf of 1.3 billion Chinese people, sincere greetings and best wishes to the people of the United States. 我这次访问美国，是为增进互信、加强友谊、深化合作，推动21世纪集体合作全面的中美关系
继续向前发展而来。
I have come to the United States to increase mutual trust, enhance friendship, deepen cooperation, and push forward the positive, cooperative, and comprehensive China-US relationship for the 21st century.
中美建交32年来，两国关系已经成长为具有战略意义和全球影响的双边关系。奥巴马总统就职以来，在双方共同努力下，两国各领域合作成果丰硕，中美关系得到新的发展，为两国人民带来了实实在在的利益，为世界的和平与发展做出了重要贡献。
For the past 32 years since the establishment of diplomatic ties, the China-US relationship has grown into one with strategic significance and global influence. Since President Obama took office, with concerted efforts of the two sides, our cooperation in various fields has produced fruitful results, and our relations have achieved new progress. This has brought real benefits to our two peoples and contributed greatly to world peace and development.
在21世纪第二个10年开始之际，中美两国人民都期待中美关系发展的更好，各国人民都期待世界发展的更好。面对新形势、新挑战，中美两国拥有广泛的共同利益，肩负着重要的共同责任。我们应该登高望远，求同存异，共同推动中美关系长期健康稳定发展。我希望通过这次访问，推进积极合作全面的中美关系，开启两国伙伴合作新篇章。
We enter the second decade of the 21st century. The people of both China and the United States want to see further progress in our relations. And people around the globe want to see greater prosperity in the world. Under the new circumstances and in the face of new challenges, China and the United States share broad common interests and important common responsibilities. We should adopt a long-term perspective, seek common ground while resolving differences, and work together to achieve sustained, sound, and steady development of our relations. I hope that through this visit, our two countries will advance the positive, cooperative, and comprehensive relationship and open a new chapter in our cooperation as partners.
中美伙伴合作应该基于相互尊重。我们生活在一个越来越丰富多彩的世界之中，中美两国要尊重彼此对发展道路的选择，尊重对方核心利益，通过沟通加深了解，通过对话增进互信，通过交流扩大共识。
Our cooperation as partners should be based on mutual respect. We live in an increasingly diverse and colorful world. China and the United States should respect each other's choice of development path and each other's core interests. We should deepen mutual understanding through communication, increase mutual trust through dialogue, and expand common ground through exchanges.
中美伙伴合作应该基于
Okay, I'm not going to play the whole thing. I think we got the idea. This is what you should be looking for when you look at the text. Look for repetition, lexical Look for theme. What do you see here? Our cooperation as partners, and then our cooperation as partners. What do you call that? Kind of thematic progression. What's it? Ending one is how you begin the next. Linear. So you have a linear thematic progression here between 5 and 6, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, a very clear case of continuous thematic progression. What I wanted to show you is that this isn't just not making a text up to look easy. right? This is how texts are made. And they are made to be coherent. Let's take a look at another. Now, this one, please take a look at the text as it is in the handout that I've given to you. This is the toast afterwards. And again, let's listen in. Follow along with the text. What I want you to be doing is I want you to be looking what stands out to you
各位来
as the
宾、
coherent
女士
structure
们、
of that
先
text.
生们、朋友们，晚上好。应奥巴马总统的邀请，我很高兴再一次来到美国进行国事访问。一踏上这片美丽的土地，我们就受到美国政府和人民的深情反对。今天晚上，奥巴马总统又给我们举行欢迎宴会，并发表了热情洋溢的讲话。我谨代表我的同事们，并以我个人的名义，向奥巴马总统和夫人，向在座的美国朋友们表示衷心的感谢，并通过你们向热情友好的美国人民转达中国人民的良好祝愿，向所有关心和支持中美关系发展的美国各界人士致以诚挚的问候。
President Obama and Mrs. Obama, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, good evening. I am delighted to once again come to the United States to pay a state visit at the invitation of President Obama. Since setting foot on this beautiful land, we have received the gracious hospitality of the U.S. government and people. This evening, President Obama is hosting this welcoming dinner for us and has just made warm remarks. On behalf of my colleagues and in my own name, I want to express heartfelt thanks to President and Mrs. Obama and other American friends present today. I also wish to convey through you the best wishes of the Chinese people, friendly American people, and extend cordial greetings to people from various sectors of the United States who have given care and support to the growth of China-U.S. relations.
我这次应奥巴马总统邀请访问美国，目的是增进互信，加强友谊，深化合作，推动21世纪积极合作全面的中美关系继续向前发展。近年来，特别是奥巴马总统就职2年来，在双方的共同努力下，中美关系得到长足发展，两国广泛领域交流合作不断扩大。 双方在重大的国际和地区问题上保持密切沟通和协调，为促进亚太地区乃至世界的和平、稳定、繁荣发挥了积极作用。
The purpose of my visit is to increase mutual trust, enhance friendship, deepen cooperation, and advance positive, cooperative, and comprehensive China-U.S. relationship for the 21st century. In recent years, particularly over the past 2 years since President Obama took office, China-U.S. relations have made strong headway thanks to the joint efforts of both sides. We have increased exchanges and cooperation in a wide range of areas, maintained close communication and coordination on major international and regional issues, and played a positive role in promoting peace, stability, and prosperity in the Asia-Pacific region and the whole world.
在当前形势下，中美两国拥有的共同利益比以往任何时候都要广泛，担负的共同责任比以往任何时候都要重大，面临的共同挑战比以往任何时候都要严峻，因而保持中美关系长期健康稳定发展，也就比以往任何时候都要重要。这是中美两国面临的客观现实，应该成为我们的共识。
Under the current circumstances, our two countries share broader common interests, shoulder bigger common responsibilities, and face more severe common challenges than at any time in history. As a result, it is more important than ever for us to maintain the long-term, sound, and the steady growth of our bilateral relations. This is the reality we face, and it should be recognized by both sides.
今天上午，我同奥巴马总统举行会谈，就中美关系及共同关心的国际和地区问题深入交换意见，达成重要共识。我们一致同意，两国应该与其高层和各个级别的交往，加强对话和沟通，增进战略互信，深化各个领域的交流合作，提起在国际和地区问题上的沟通和协调，尊重对方主权、领土完整和发展利益，妥善处理摩擦和分歧，致力于共同努力建设相互尊重、互利共赢的中美合作伙伴关系。
This morning, President Obama and I had an in-depth exchange of views on China-US relations and international and regional issues of common interest, and we reached important agreement. We agreed that our two countries should increase contacts at the top and other levels, strengthen strategic mutual trust through dialogue and communication, intensify exchanges and cooperation in all fields, and step up communication and coordination on international and regional issues. We agreed that the two countries should respect each other's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and development interests, properly handle differences and frictions, and work together to build a China-US cooperative partnership based on mutual respect and mutual benefit.
回顾往昔，中美建交32年来走过的不平凡历程表明，两国的共同利益远远大于分歧，互利合作始终是两国关系，这坚定了我们推动中美关系发展的信心。展望未来，中美两国都面临着保持经济平稳发展和实现经济转型的艰巨任务，都需要应对经济全球化带来的各种。这增强了我们加强合作的需要和意义。
China-US relations have traveled an extraordinary journey in the past 32 years since the establishment of diplomatic ties. A review of the history of our relations shows that we have far more common interests than differences, and cooperation for mutual benefit has always been the mainstream of our relations. This has reinforced our confidence in further pushing forward our relationship. Today, both China and the United States are confronted with the arduous task of sustaining steady economic growth and achieving economic transformation, and we both need to tackle the various challenges brought by economic globalization. This has added to our need and desire to enhance cooperation.
我们要以更加坚定的信念、更加宽广的视野、更加积极的行动，脚踏实地、锐意进取，充分挖掘两国合作潜力，不断开创中美关系发展新局面。我相信，在双方的共同努力下，中美合作伙伴关系一定能够取得丰硕的成果，更好地照顾两国人民，为世界和平与发展的崇高事业做出新的、更大的贡献。
To pursue our relations with a stronger conviction, a broader vision, and more proactive approach, we need to take solid steps and make pioneering efforts to fully tap the potential of cooperation and strive for new progress in China-US relations. I am confident that with joint efforts, China-US cooperative partnership will yield bountiful fruits for the greater benefit of our people and make new and bigger contribution to the noble cause of world peace and development.
现在我提议，为奥巴马总统和夫人的健康，为在座的各位朋友的健康，为中美两国人民的友谊不断加强，为中美关系不断发展干杯。
Health of President and Mrs. Obama, the health of all friends present here, to the stronger friendship between the people of China and the United States, and to the steady growth of China-US relations. Yes.
All right, now let's take a look. Before we begin at all to think about the rhetorical structure, let's look at what we see as far as cohesiveness. 1 through 3, I am delighted, I want to express, I also wish so. Again, this use of first person singular I. We see it again, and then when we get to paragraph 13 at the end, I'm confident, I'd like to propose a toast. So that's one thing that stands out. All right. Would you take a look at the text? What else do you see as being cohesive about the text? Time. Time as circumstance, as theme. In recent years, under the current circumstances, this morning. And so it lays it out in terms of a sequence of time. Today, now, time as circumstance, as theme. Well, that gives us a sense of the progression. Because of the time, what else is going to coincide with that? Tense. When I'm talking about in recent years, we will have made, have increased. So we notice the use of present perfect. When we get to paragraph 7, under the current circumstances, we notice more present tense. It's current circumstances after all, right? What happened in this morning? This morning they did something. This is at night, right? So this morning took place when? Past. And so we notice the use of past tense here. We had, we reach, I had, we reached, we agreed, we agreed. Again, that we agreed, that repetition. Again, what did they agree? Paragraph 10, again, we shift back then to present perfect and present tense together. And we have today. And we notice something else, the use of modals, should, need to. We see that in paragraphs 11 and 12. We saw that in his welcome speech, right? Should. Repeating so many times, should. He's repeating it here as well, the use of that modal auxiliary. So what have we seen? The use of theme, indication of circumstance as theme, time. You've seen it coincides with them in that paragraph tense has a particular role. We see the use of personal pronouns, I at the beginning, I at the end. So let's sort of take that text and sort of now lock it off into certain sections, all right? What are we doing? We're identifying the functionally significant spans. How are we doing it? We're doing it on the basis of what we see as cohesiveness in turn. And what is cohesiveness? The choices that are being made. It could be tense, it could be theme, it could be personal pronoun. All of these add up to identifying the functionally significant spans of text. What else would we see? Where else would we sort of lock it off? Where we saw present perfect, we see it in paragraph 5 and 6, 10 and 11. In between, we have paragraph 7 is present perfect, present tense under the current circumstances, and 8 and 9, well, that was past tense. The use of modals in paragraph 11 and 12. So we can position all this whole text into its various parts. We're not done yet. Because what we need to see then is how do those parts relate one to the other. That's where we rely on rhetorical structure theory. Rhetorical structure theory is then to help us identify what we consider to be the rhetorical structure of the text. Well, again, let's bring all that we've been looking at here and take a look at, we have 8 and 9, that was past tense, that occurred this morning. We have in recent years, the tense is present perfect, moving into present. We have today, so we have present tense and the use of the modal auxiliary should and need to. And this whole part here, under the current circumstances, also put it into present tense. So we have 5 and 6, 7 through 9, 10 through 12. We identify those stands based on the cohesive pattern of certain choices. Let's try something. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take this beginning. This is actually from a book, all right? And this the chapter begins like this. Paul, 1959, others have commented on the different sense of space that Westerners and Easterners entertain. Which is the next sentence? They're all grammatical, okay? Nothing to do with grammar. What is the reason for your choice? Paul, 1959, others have commented on the different sense of space that Westerners and Easterners entertain. A, when they speak with each other, Easterners tend to stand closer. B, Easterners tend to stand closer when they speak to each other. What would you choose? Well, if I was thinking of it in terms of thematic progression, I choose B. And that's correct. All right, what's the next sentence? Easterners tend to stand closer when they speak to each other. Well, C and D, now we both begin with Westerners, all right? And so that isn't going to be the differentiating factor. The other is Westerners carry with them a spatial cocoon, on the other hand. D, Westerners, on the other hand, carry with them a spatial cocoon that they do not like to see violated. What do we have here? We have indication of the textual connection, right? And that comes immediately after Westerners. Westerners, on the other hand. Now, remember, when writing, the writing is to make it as clear as possible to the reader, not to be creative. Now, I know some grammar teachers, writing teachers will tell you, be creative and don't just keep repeating the same thing, and so forth, right? But that doesn't necessarily help the reader. And your purpose is for the reader to be able to understand it as clear as possible. All right, Westerners, on the other hand, carry with them a spatial cocoon they do not like to see violated, which is the next one. By a system of keeping reasonable distances between themselves and others, Westerners fill up beaches, buses, all public places, in fact. Or F. Now, again, I remind you, this is from a book. So what I'm giving you is what was in the book, all right? Not what my choice is, all right? This is what's in the book. Which do you think it is, E or F? By now, you should begin to sort of have an idea that it is similar to what was before. In which case, F, Westerners fill up beaches. Remember, I told you early on, I told you that when you have a text that compares and contrasts, what's likely to be? It is whatever you are comparing and Okay, so that is the usual, all right? Westerners fill up beaches, buses, all public places, in fact, by a system of keeping reasonable distances between themselves and others. Or is it G, deliberately choosing places near each other and even near crowded food stands or exits? An Egyptian beach fills up by clumps. H, an Egyptian beach fills up by clumps. What do you think it is? G or H? Say it out. What is it? Huh? What is it? You guys, come on. You are so reluctant to speak. All right? Why? All right? An Egyptian beach. You put the Egyptian at the beginning. All right? They enjoy movement around them of other people and like to watch and interact with their neighbors. Or other people moving around them they enjoy and like to watch and interact with their neighbors. What do you think? I or J? How many say I? And really, raise your hand, all right? Come on, come on. How many say J? An Egyptian beach fills up by clumps, people deliberately choosing places near each other and even near crowded food stands or exits. What do you think if you are repeating the same thing as me? It's they. K or L? By now it's not even reading the sentences. By now you figured it out, right? You're going to be keeping putting the theme, what it is you are comparing. And here, Westerners, forced to sit near each other, affect privacy. During illness, the Westerners' desire for privacy becomes strongest. The Westerners' desire for privacy becomes strongest during illness. Which is it? N. Yes, thank you. The Westerners' desire for privacy becomes strongest during illness. Then dominating the social context is his or her need to retreat and sleep it off. Then his or her need, again, who you are talking about. You put his need, his or her need. Egyptians, as might be expected, feel differently. Egyptians feel differently, as might be expected. Well, the tendency here is to put whatever it is, whether it's indicating interpersonal or sexual meaning, immediately after what you're comparing. Last one. S or T? Well, this time the writer did decide to vary. And the writer did change it, so he didn't put they, all right, at the beginning. See, it doesn't always work, all right? It's not always consistent. You get my point? The choices that we make of theme are based on the nature of the text. And in fact, we can predict what will be likely theme based on the nature of the text. If a text is comparing and contrasting, then what it is you are comparing and contrasting will always be put there in the front for the reader to know exactly what it is you're talking about. And how they are different or how they are similar, that's the new information. That's going to come at the end. This is what drives the flow of information. Commencement speeches. Okay, let's talk about this. And to begin with, though, let's hear the speech. This part of it. It's just a
And finally, as you're changing the world, never neglect family. They're not just your foundation. They're the source of life's greatest fulfillment, as all the parents here can testify. Both my parents were recently struck by serious illnesses. My colleagues were tremendous about stepping in for me at the halls of the United Nations. But nobody could step in for me or my brother at the hospital. There's usually someone else who can do your job, but there's nobody else who can be a loving child or a devoted parent. Like those before you, your generation will contribute. It will innovate and it will serve in unique ways. But today, change is coming faster than ever. And you must shape that change. You can be that change, not for an election, but for a lifetime. If you remember nothing else of what I said, try to remember that little boy. Remember that he is somebody's beloved son. Remember that he counts as much as any of us. Remember that we cannot afford to sleep easy while he suffers. Remember that you can make his life better. Above all, remember that each of us has a profound responsibility to try with all of our skill, all of our smarts, and all of our soul. So make him safe, make progress, and make us proud. Congratulations again, and Godspeed.
All right. First thing. On the exam, when you see the text, first thing you do is this. Frame the text within the context of situation. What is its purpose? What is its function? Why is the speaker speaking? Why is the text written in such a way? What is its functional value? What is it to realize? Or, if it was perhaps poetry, what is its aesthetic value? What are your expectations given the typical features of text occurring in that context of situation? This is a commencement speech, right? We just saw it with Steve Jobs. We're now seeing it with her. We saw it with David Foster Wallace before. So when we're looking at these commencement speeches, what is its purpose? Its purpose is to motivate. And when it's something that's going to be motivating, you saw it in Steve Jobs, but you see it repeated so many times here. What is a sentence structure that is repeated here? It is the imperative. Throughout the text, remember. Oh, make. What was that? What was the ending of that? Make progress. Make us proud. Make him safe. Try to remember. Never neglect family. It is repeated so many times. She's telling you. Now, if someone was constantly telling you, do this, do that, how would you feel? Well, you feel that sort of, come on, why are you doing this? But in a commencement speech, it's expected. It's expected that this person, based on their experience, is going to tell you what you should do. And so you'll notice a lot of the imperatives. That's to go along with what is a commencement speech. It's supposed to inspire. And very often it is the personal story of whoever's been invited to give the speech. So it will be full of first person, but will also be addressed to you. Okay, so you're asked to take a look at the transitivity, logical, theme read. What is the relationship of fit to context between the text and the context? Begin with that in your answer, all right? That's what I expect to see. Fit the text into the context. Comment on how the patterning of choices in terms of lexicogrammatical features relates to the cohesiveness or the coherence of the text. And I add this, and if you disagree with any of the analysis during the exam, don't raise your hand. And call me to come over and tell me that this was wrong, all right? This is a mistake in terms of the analysis. If you think there's a mistake in the analysis, or if you think the analysis could be better, tell me so on your exam paper, all right? Not during the exam. I hope it's correct, but no one's perfect, all right? Transitivity. So what are you going to look for? Process types. That we have done. And you are going to look at what or who is in the ER roles. Now, this text we've done before, right? You remember it? When I was comparing Donald Jung with his speech and looking at it in terms of who is in the ER role and whether it's things or whether it's people, she was the example, and it was this text. All right? That's why I say, you look back into what you had already looked at and studied and you talked about. That is to be mentioned in the exam, all right? No text is an island. It has to be considered in the context of what else was taking place and what else you are familiar with. All right, so we can see the process types in it. We have the totals here, and I've listed in terms of I, you, we, or us, and other. And, well, it looks like other is a lot here. The analysis that I did here, the whole text was what you saw when I compared it with Donald Trump, right? This was just the final part. It seems then that you have a lot of other, not so much, well, you more than I, and you more than we and us. Logical structure. What am I going to notice? Well, I noticed something here, and that is that I see a lot of paratactic over here. How come there's a lot of paratactic structure? One thing I recommend when you look at a text, when you start going through the text, circle certain words that stand out to you, like conjunctions. And you'll notice that in that first part here, why is it paratactic? Because you got a lot of but, and, semicolon. All right, that's why it's heavily paratactic. In contrast, down here, now why is there a lot of hypotaxis? Remember. And remember is a mental process. So there's a lot of projection. Remember that. Remember that. Okay? Those that causes, that's projection. That's hypotaxis. Theme. When I'm looking at theme, what do I notice? Well, one of the things I'm going to be paying attention to is, okay, who's topical themes and so forth. Textual themes, that's going to give me some indication of the buts and so forth. The interpersonal. The imperative is treated as the interpersonal. Try to remember, 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 remember. Remember, then repeating at the end in threes, make. Now, here is where you need to pay attention. In an imperative, who is the subject? You. Right? You is the subject on mention. You remember. So before, what we were looking at in terms of how many times does you occur, we have to look at in terms of the imperatives. We have 7 simple, 25 complex clauses. 7 simple, 22%, 3 of them are imperatives. Out of 25, which is 78%, 7 are imperatives. So there's not, I mean, it's more complex clauses than simple, but some of it is result of parataxis, joining with conjunctions and so forth. But if I add up then 10 occurrences of the imperative, then it gives us a very different picture about you and how much you figures into what is taking place within the text. So sometimes you have to think outside of the tables. Not just what you see there, it's not going to be just adding up the numbers, all right? Some things you're going to have to look about and think about it. If you said to yourself, well, there's not many mentions of you. Well, there is. Because the imperative occurs so frequently. So think outside the tables. Use the tables, but don't be confined to the tables when you're doing your analysis. In terms of the structure and so forth, whenever we have these, you're changing the world, that's 30. And it seemed like to me, it was sort of like 3 isolated ideas at the end. One was about family, and then about changing the world, and then remember that little boy. It was a story that she told earlier on in the speech.